בפרשת השבוע מדובר על הבהמות הטהורות המותרות לאכילה, והבהמות הטמאות האסורות באכילה. In this week's parsha, it talks about the permissible animals, the animals that we can eat, and the impure animals, that's what they're called, impure, that we can't eat. Zachariah, what are the signs of an animal that's permissible to eat?
Split hooves and does not chew his cud. You need split hooves?
And it does chew its cud.
I thought you're not allowed to have it.
Oh no. I hope you haven't been eating. You know what animal it is that has split hooves and it doesn't chew its cud?
What? Pig. You do not want to act like a pig.
I didn't even want to say the word.
Pigs act very bad.
Do not eat pigs, even if a pig acts very nice.
Do not eat a lion.
Very good, but lions don't have split hooves.
Plus, you know why you don't want to eat a lion?
Because they might eat you. They might eat you.
They're vicious, that's why.
And lions have no prohibition to eat human beings. There is no human prohibition. So it could be that you, but that's true.
Pigs eat human beings.
Pigs will eat anything.
They'll eat other pigs, they'll eat human beings.
Yes,
that's
they do.
That's why we don't eat pigs, that's why we don't
That's
eat
not
lions.
why. We don't eat pigs because Hashem says He doesn't want us to eat pigs. But pigs have very not human, or maybe very human traits. Humans also eat each other. It says in Pirkei Avos that if it wasn't for the government, people would swallow each other alive. Ish et chaveru chayim below. But Parshat Shavua.
That's why there's cops.
In this week, very good. In this week's portion, we learn about the permissible and the not permissible animals.
Is this
In order for no, Shabbos Zachor was long ago.
When was that?
This Parshas Para.
Zachor was last part?
Zachor was last week. We read. Excuse me. The part of the Zachor was last week. This is Parshas Para. Next, the week after that is Parshas Chodesh. The week after that, Shabbos is Shabbos HaGadol. And the week after that, Shabbos is Pesach. Pesach falls on Shabbos this year.
Break out the cookies.
I don't want to hear that again, okay? Yerachmiel likes kosher for Pesach cookies. Do you like that? Pesach?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have to ask you both to leave. In Chabad, we do not eat kosher Pesach cookies.
Really?
Unless it's Passover.
Unless your wife makes it.
They don't have them advice?
If they have it, it's a different thing, but we don't eat it. Okay, let's go. We have a custom in Chabad not to eat anything that's packaged, except for sugar and salt.
But what if it's steak, meat?
And coffee. Some
what
people
about
eat
meat? That's always packaged.
meat, not...
It's made from mashed potatoes.
What is?
Those cookies.
Even mashed potatoes themselves. Even mashed potatoes themselves, 100%. Excuse me. Chabad officially has the custom of not eating them. Of course, there are those who find it a little difficult to do, or whatever reason is, they just love those mashed potatoes, and they will eat. But generally speaking, we do not eat anything in the package, and the reason is because on Pesach, it is a custom to be crazy hidur with matzah and chometz. Things that don't make any sense whatsoever. Okay. As an example, Chabad, a lot of the Ashkenazi Jews, they don't eat any legumes like beans or peas or rice or things like that. Even though there's absolutely no reason not to eat them. And the Sephardic, very holy Sephardic Jews, who are certainly no less, careful about what they eat than the Ashkenazi Jews. But nevertheless, it's just a crazy thing. Let's go. Let's go back to our topic. We're talking about the two signs that make an animal kosher. It has to have split hooves and it has to chew its cud. Now, what does it mean to chew its cud? Chew its cud means that it has several stomachs. The animals have several stomachs, and they chew their food up a little bit, and they put it into the stomach, and then they regurgitate it. They bring it back up, and they re-chew it, and then they swallow it. It could be they even do it a few times. And someone said that we can see this as part of the defense mechanism, because usually these animals, pure animals, they are not attacking animals, and they don't have usually weapons of defense like claws and fangs and things like that. So therefore, and they have to eat, so it enables them to eat quickly without chewing, and then afterwards, when they're in a safe place, they can bring it back up and re-chew it. This is just somebody's idea. This is not the reason that God decided, as far as I know, that God decided to do this, but it's not a bad idea.
Kosher domestic animals are all vegetarians?
What?
They're all vegetarians? I know they're not predators, but they don't eat meat, I guess.
Who? What?
These animals that we can eat as kosher animals.
Yes.
They're all domestic ones. They're all
not necessarily.
grain eaters.
Not necessarily. There's what's called a chaya. A chaya is like a deer, antelopes, things like that, which usually are not domesticated. And they're kosher.
And they eat meat?
No. Usually they don't.
That's what I was getting at.
Oh, are all kosher meat only, what is it called? Hermivorous, what are they called?
The vegetarians.
Hermivorous.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, except for the birds, I mean. Even though they say that the Shalah HaKodesh, he once saw a turkey peck another turkey to death. And therefore he said the turkeys are forbidden in their family. Horvitz, the family, they don't eat turkey. Because he saw that. Okay, let's continue. So those are the two signs that an animal has to be kosher. We're not talking about birds and we're not talking about fish. We're talking about animals. Animals, there's two signs they have to be, is that they have split hooves and they re-chew their food, chew their cud. Good?
Good.
There is a philosophical investigation into these different these two signs the animals have, chewing their cud and split hooves. If these two signs, that's what makes the animal kosher, it was because the animal has split hooves and chews its cud, that makes it kosher. And also the opposite. If it doesn't have it, it means for some reason this causes the animal to be not kosher. Or it's just a sign. Or it's just a sign that this indicates that this animal is not kosher. Just God put an arbitrary sign on this animal. The kosher animals chew their cuds and have split hooves, and not kosher animals, they don't. But it has nothing to do with causing it to be kosher or not. It's just a sign. It's like you have, sometimes you buy chocolate, it says milchik on the wrapper. Right? Does the fact that it's written chalav, that cause the thing to be milchik? In other words, they just have bars of chocolate, and on some of them they write chalav, and that causes it to be milchik? Of course not. It's ridiculous. Because it has milk in it, so they write on it. Maybe it's the same thing with animals, or maybe not.
Well, does this bring up a question about kosher hechshers? You buy a chicken, it doesn't have a kosher hechsher, but it went through a kosher slaughtering plant.
Let's just learn this. One second. I'll answer that in a second. But the fact that the animal is kosher comes from other factors. Not the fact that it has split hooves and chews its cud has nothing to do with it being kosher. It just happens to be a sign they put on it, like you put a sign kosher on the meat because it's kosher. But it's not that the sign makes it kosher. So that we should know that these are the pure animals. So God just put a sign on these animals that they chew their cud and they have split hooves to tell us that this is a kosher animal. Therefore, Kova Kodesh Baruch Hu Simanim Sheben Seisam, that through these signs you can know if they are kosher or not. Okay, what do we care? What do we care? I mean, later we have a sheep, right? And a sheep. Now, a sheep has split hooves and it chews its cud. Does the split hooves and the chewing the cud make it kosher? Or is it just a sign that it's kosher? Right? So we can say, who cares? What difference does it make? The fact is that if it's a kosher animal, it has split hooves. What do I care if the split hooves make it kosher? What's the sign? What do I care? What's the difference? Says the Rebbe, I have del bein shnei ofanim. The difference between them is like this. Halacha the law is that anything that comes out, mina tahor. Anything that comes out of a permissible animal is permissible. Even if it hasn't got any signs. For instance, what if a sheep gives birth to a baby and the baby has hooves that are not split? Even though it hasn't got any signs,
then sell it to a non-kosher store.
You don't have to sell it to anybody. You can eat it yourself.
Then sell it to a non-kosher store. You can make money that way.
You don't have to sell it. You can eat it yourself.
If you want, you can sell it to a non-kosher store. That would be a better choice.
If you say that the signs that God made, a split hoofs and chewing the cud, is just a sign that tells us what the thing is, has no cause, it does not cause the animal, then move on to Salach, and then we can understand this law. Why? Because an animal that comes out from a pure animal, or a baby of a sheep, no matter how it looks, a baby of a sheep that comes out and looks like a lion, you can eat it. Why? Because it came out from a sheep. It doesn't have any of the signs. We don't care. They're just signs. But if you want to say that no, the signs are what caused the animal, they are the reason that the animal's in, then then logic will tell you that if a sheep gives birth to a lion, then obviously it's not kosher. The reason why would you say a sheep that comes out of a lion that comes out of a sheep, or the other way around, right, would be like the mother? It's just because that's the law. It just is the law, but it doesn't make any sense. Why? Because if you say that the split hooves and the chewing of the cud, that is just a sign that God put a stamp on it to show it's kosher, but the animal is kosher even without these signs. So now we can understand why. We don't really care that much if it has the signs or not, right? It has to have some sign that this animal is kosher. Another sign is an animal that comes from a kosher animal is kosher. A lion that comes, a sheep that gave birth to an animal that looks like a lion, as we don't care if it has a chew or cut. There is another sign that makes it kosher. What? It came from a kosher animal. That's another sign. Right? There's another sign that came. But if we say that no, that the signs are what makes it kosher or not, then we have to say that the signs always that cause the animal to be kosher. If the animal has split hooves or chooses, that causes it to be kosher. Why is it that if a sheep gives birth to a lion, it's kosher? It must be another law. It's an exception. That's an exception to the law. Right? See, it's an exception. So what? So one second. So what do we come out with? We don't know. Maybe these things actually make the animal kosher. Maybe you have to have one of two things to make it kosher. Either it has to have split hooves and a chew its cud, or it has to come from a mother that's kosher. Right? It has to come from a mother. Or maybe we say no. We say that the hooves and the chewing the cud, that's what makes the animal kosher. And if it doesn't have it, then it's treif. Unless there's a special case when it comes from a mother that's kosher, then it's kosher. That just doesn't, a law doesn't make any sense. Get it or not?
No. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Is it that the animal has the two signs, the split hooves and chewing the cud, that makes the animal kosher?
Right.
Or but those are. It's not that it makes it kosher, but it's a sign.
That's right.
Kosher. We're talking about the same thing. It's a little bit semantics.
So that's what Rabbi says. Is it just semantics? It's not semantics, no. Again, let's say you have bars of chocolate, right? And you have wrappers. Some of the wrappers say parva, and some of the wrappers say chalav. Can you put the wrappers on whichever ones you want to, and whichever one you put on, that wrapper makes the chocolate like the wrapper?
Of course not.
Of course not. It's ridiculous, right? Look at this. So.
But you're going to go and say maybe.
Now let's say let's say the same thing is with animals. If an animal is kosher, it's kosher. God just put a sign on it to show there's kosher. The fact that it has split hooves and chewing the cud has nothing to do with it being kosher. It's just an arbitrary sign, but that sign does show.
It happens that they chew cud.
Right. It's kosher, or maybe not,
Well, no, then you can say. The lamb gives birth to a thing that doesn't have split hooves yet. And I'm assuming yet because it just gave birth.
No. It never's going to have split hooves.
It's a situation of like birth defect.
Birth defect. Is that animal kosher or not?
How's with birth defects? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
So it says yes, it is kosher. Okay. You have to check the animal. I mean, if there's other laws, if the lungs are okay, okay, or maybe no. Maybe we don't say. Maybe the fact is that split hooves and chewing the cud is much more important than what we think. It's not just a wrapper. Maybe
that's also true.
Maybe somehow. Well, we'll see. So maybe that is what determines if the animal is kosher or not, right? Here, let me give you another question. What is the difference between a kosher animal and a non-animal? 1 second, listen. Kosher or not kosher? The whole thing makes no sense. Why should it be that a sheep is okay to eat? Sheep is all right to eat, but rattlesnake, no way. I've heard from people that eat rattlesnake that it's tremendously tasty. Lobster, they say it's really, really good. Who says? God just decided. God decided that sheep meat is kosher, and this is not a kosher. Maybe what makes it kosher is these split hooves in the stomach. Maybe.
So it's not just the sign; it's actually an intrinsic part of what is.
Right, cause.
What is a kosher animal?
Yeah.
The signs have to be there. We look at the signs. But it's not just like putting the pop wrapper on a chalvi candy.
Right.
It's a significant part of what it is. It's not a symbol.
Right.
It's complete in what it is.
Right.
Okay.
It's a cause. Okay. The difference between the law, whether that it's kosher because of logic or kosher because of the Torah, is. Let's go back to our original case. We sort of you say, went off the subject, deviated from the subject. A lion comes out, a sheep gives birth to an animal, and that animal, let's say for our purposes, it looks like a sheep,
it doesn't have the kosher signs.
But it doesn't have the kosher signs. It doesn't have, its hooves are one like a camel, and it doesn't chew its cud, right? And what's the law? It's kosher. Now, let's explain that law. That's the law. Do we say that the reason is because God just made a law? Another law. He said, this is another sign of being kosher, that it came from a kosher mother. Right? Another sign. It's not really that important, right? So he made another sign, an animal, in order, a sign, right? Like,
but why do you make signs?
So that we'll know what's kosher or not. So here we have a bar of chocolate, there's either can have a wrapper that says milchik on it, or it can have a little white dot in the corner of the thing. Another sign. Here also God made another sign. One second, let me finish. Either the animal can have split hooves and a chewing cut, or another sign that can come from a mother that's kosher. Right? It's just a wrapper. Right? It has nothing to do with the animal being kosher or not. The animal is kosher, but there's a sign that the animal is kosher. Or maybe we say no. Maybe we say that animal has to have a split hooves. The split hooves cause the animal to be kosher, and the chewing the cud caused the animal to be kosher. Why is it that an animal doesn't have these things, but it's born from a kosher animal? Why is it kosher? The Torah decided. Just a gezeres hakasuv. The Torah decided. Even though that usually these things cause, but here's one exception. Right? It's almost like the thing you have, a man cannot marry his brother's wife. But we made an exception, a yabam. A man can marry his brother's wife after his brother passes away and there's no children, right? You can eat it, right? A man is not allowed to eat not kosher food. You can't eat not kosher food. A person cannot eat rabbit. But the law is that if it's dangerous, sakanas nefashos, right? You're going to lose your life, it's permissible to eat. Right? So here's a case where the Torah made a special decree that you can. The Torah could have easily decided that you can't eat rabbit, even if you're going to die. You can't eat rabbit. That's it. Right? But the Torah decided not to. Here's also the same thing. An animal is kosher. What makes it kosher? Split hooves, and this makes it kosher. That's what makes it kosher. But there's a special law that if it came from a kosher mother, it also makes it kosher. Okay, there's a difference between if it's what's called logic or gezerah hakatuv. Logic is, what it means? That these things, split hooves and this, are coming from, that's just science. The animal is essentially kosher. Or do we say that it causes? If so, we have to say it's what's called gezerah hakatuv. Yes?
God doesn't do science.
Why not? Who says?
We may only understand it as a sign, but there's more into it. Everything we study, you look at one letter in the Torah. It's not, nothing is just
listen, it could be that there's
something for nothing because it's decorative.
But God did not. Good. Maybe He didn't arbitrarily choose these signs, right? What's the best example than the Hebrew alphabet, the Hebrew language, right? Why did God decide that this thing is going to be called a sefer? Why? Why didn't this thing? It could be called Lavana, the moon. Why not use the same words? Why not do this?
because there is.
One second. At first glance, you can say that. What do you mean? God could have done it if He wanted to. He could have, or you could say, no. This book comes from the letters Samach Pei Resh. It comes from the letters Sefer. The letters are what makes this book. Therefore, this thing is not arbitrarily called a Sefer. It's called okay, you could say that. That's a Kabbalistic meaning.
The letters make the book, and the book makes the letters.
All right, so yeah. Oh, let's see. Okay. Here's another big difference. Listen. Asur l'sachek b'davar machal tahor. It is forbidden to play around with edible food. B'madvar, what are we talking about? Keshehu mimin tahor. If it is from a permissible animal. Avol kasher u'mimin tameh. B'taraso eino ela gezeres hakasuv. Ein kayan iser zeh. If it's an impure animal, but for some reason the Torah says you can eat it, then it is not forbidden to play with it.
What does it mean, play with it?
Yeah, you want to play football. You want to play catch. Right? You want to play catch with a banana, you shouldn't do it. You want to play catch with food, that's permissible, you can't do it. You want to play catch with a squirrel, with a dead squirrel, you can do it. Pig skin, you can do it. food that is edible and kosher to eat, you cannot play around with it. It's like bal tashchis. You're not allowed to wreck things up. But if the food is not permissible for you anyway, you can't. What about food that becomes permissible because of the decree of the Torah? Okay, let me go back to the example again. A person is dying, and therefore it's permissible for him to eat not kosher food. Right, a rabbit. Permissibly rabbit. Is he allowed to play around with this rabbit? Right? Now, it's permissible for him to eat, but it's only permissible because of a decree of the Torah. So it would be permissible for him to eat it.
When you say play around, we're not really talking about playing ball.
No,
Whatever.
whatever.
Pretending that it's kosher.
Use it as a something a doorstop that'll wreck it up. What's the proof? There's a pasuk that says Leviasan yitzarta l'sachek bo. The Rishomi says, how can you play with a permissible thing, permissible Leviasan? And it says Leviasan is an impure animal. But just in the end, the days of the Mashiach, it'll be made permissible to eat because of a special decree. So it comes out that what? If the Torah comes from the law, then it would be permissible to sachek bo. So in other words, if the fact that an animal is kosher comes because of the signs that it has, because the animal has split hooves, and because the animal chews its cud, that causes it to be kosher. So if it doesn't have these things, it's not kosher. But what about an animal then that doesn't have these things? An animal comes out, looks like a fish, and it's born from a sheep, right? Are you allowed to eat it? No, it doesn't have those causes.
Only if you saw it born.
You saw it born.
And we know that anything that's born from kosher,
right. So why? It doesn't have the things that cause the animal to be kosher. So he says it's gezeres hakasuv. It's an unusual case. The Torah said that it's permissible. If so, an animal like that, you could play around with it. You could use it for a doorstop or whatever. All right, now the Rebbe is going to go a little bit deeper into this. And he's going to say something like what you said. It can't be that God just called the animal kosher for no reason. There are a lot of proofs that simoni Torah are siba Torah. We can find a lot of sources that say that what makes an animal, not what signifies it, but what causes the animal to be kosher, is that it has split hooves and chews its cud. Split hooves and chew the cud causes the animal to be kosher. There's a lot of people that say that. Kain mashma gamba lashon pasuk. It says you can eat. These are the animals that you can eat, right? And it says, what is it? An ox and a sheep, and it says ki, because mala gera hu uparsa eno mafras. I'm sorry. These are the animals that are not kosher. A pig. That's talking about the pig. I'm sorry. Talking about the rabbit. It says this is an animal you cannot eat. The rabbit you cannot eat. Why not? Kimala gerahu oparsa eno mafris. It does chew its cud, but it does not have split hooves. Interestingly enough, I once went into a pet store, and I asked the owner if it's really true that rabbits chew their cud. And he said yes. He said it's an amazing thing. He said he personally is not religious, and he never will be religious, but he really considered it. And it's because of that. Interesting. Said what? That he read in the Torah that it says that the rabbit chews its cud and it does not have split hooves. And so he asked the rabbi, and he said it's a lie. It doesn't chew its cud. So the rabbi said, well, probably the rabbits they had back then were different than now. So he thought that was a cop-out. So he looked it up and he investigated what was going on. And he found out that it does, that it chooses its cut.
Interesting. Rabbits are filled with
Remember, yeah. Okay, good. Very good. According to your opinion. That's what the Torah says. Hochacha Nosef is another one. It says a tarnagol. Da'agma. There is some sort of a chicken from the swamps, a swamp chicken. Also, it's forbidden to eat. The Tosfos, it says, why? The Tosfos is one of the commentaries on the Talmud, because b'mikra zeh ein kovea aklal hayotzim min haTorah tahor. This is an exception to the rule of whatever comes from permissible animals, permissible. Shekal shekain efruach mi'afra kar gadol. Because this case, this weird swamp chicken is created from the ground. Lefichach, therefore, it is impure. Hagadol bigalal simani hatuma. Because of the signs of the tumah it has. If you say that the signs of the animal are only simonim, are no more than that, they're just signs that the animal is kosher, but they don't cause the animal to be kosher. But because we know, if we know that this chicken happens to be a chicken, what do we care? Where do we care if this end of chicken if the chicken is not has the signs of being pure or not? Usually an animal that's a bird of prey, it goes by that. A bird of prey is not kosher. What do we care if the bird is a bird of prey or not? So it says, no. This chicken of the swamp is impure. Why? Because it hasn't got the signs. It is a bird of prey. He says, what do you mean? I thought these chickens were okay. He says, no. This is not okay. I thought there's a law that if it's something that comes from something pure, it's pure. It says this is an exception. It comes from the ground.
That means it's not really a chicken.
Therefore, we have to say the signs are a cause of it being tahor or not. We're saying these chickens, because they do not have the signs, therefore they're not kosher. So it's the signs that make it kosher. Haklala yotzim yator tor is a gezeres akasu. It's only a law, a law that makes no sense from the Torah. Therefore, if it came from the ground, in makom, the klal zed has no place for this klal. So in other words, here we have a chicken. It looks like a chicken, but it does not have. It's let's say it's a carnivorous chicken. It is a chicken of prey. So it says, okay, but what do we care? It's a chicken. It came from a kosher animal. It says, no, it's not so. This chicken, it looks like a chicken, but it came from the ground. Therefore, because it came from the ground, therefore it's true. You say, what difference does it make where it came from?
It sounds like what you're saying is that it's not a chicken. It comes from the ground. It doesn't come from a chicken.
It looks like a chicken.
It looks like a chicken, but it's not a chicken.
No, it looks like a chicken and it's called a chicken. But it happens to be that it's lacking some sign. Maybe it doesn't have a zefek. It says whatever the sign is, it's lacking. So the Gemara says, hey, but what about what animal it comes from? If it comes from a kosher animal, it must be kosher. It looks like a chicken. If it comes from a kosher animal, it must be kosher. It says, what do we care? If it doesn't have the signs So it wouldn't be kosher anyway. He says, no, it must be that there's a gezeres hakasuv, there's a law, a statute from the Torah that an animal that comes from an animal is kosher. This is a gezeres hakasuv. It's not just another sign. Right? It's not just another sign that the animal is kosher.
And the rabbi saying it doesn't come from a chicken.
But just the fact that the rabbis ask, where did it come from? In other words, where it came from would determine. The animal doesn't have the signs, right? But if it would have come from a kosher animal, it would be kosher. That comes to show us that it's a decree from the Torah. Okay, yesh eifo lavin, we have to understand what is the connection. So we have now determined that it's not so clear if these things of chewing the cud and having split hooves, if that causes the animal to be kosher, or the animal is already kosher. This is just a sign that it's kosher. Says the Rebbe, we haven't determined. There's a lot of opinions that say that these things cause the animal to be kosher. Okay? That's what we're holding now. Now ask yourself a question. How could these two seemingly extraneous factors determine whether an animal is kosher to eat or not? Right? It's like saying because you wrote Chet Lamed Beis on the wrapper, that makes the chocolate milchik. The chocolate is the chocolate is milchik if it has milk in it, not because of what the wrapper says. The same thing is, an animal is kosher because it's a kosher animal, not because of what the signs are, right? Or maybe not. Or maybe the signs make it kosher. So we have to understand what is the connection. 1 minute. What is the connection between these signs, namely a split hooves and chewing the cud? Why are these such good things that makes an animal kosher? What's so good about it? Right? Oh, it chews cud, that's a sign that it's okay. That's a good animal. That you can eat. Has split hooves also? Oh, that's really a sign that he's a big tzaddik. Has split hooves. That's his. Why?
Doesn't that go to Hashem's wisdom, why he wants us to eat these things?
Well, he wants us to understand it also. Right, God's wisdom. But why? Why are those the signs? Of all the signs, why should that be the signs? I have a better sign. It should be that any animal is like completely smooth. And you look at it, it gives you a good feeling. That's kosher. Oh, that I can understand. Right? A lion, you look at it, it's all hairy and it doesn't look nice. That's a treif animal. If you also the same thing you say, if you get a goat that has all this hair on it, it's not kosher.
Yeah, so why is this different than anything else? In all the commandments, really go into them. It's all just God told us to do it this way.
Right, that's one way of looking at everything in the Torah, 100%. And that's a very healthy way of looking at everything in the Torah. It makes you remember God all the time. You're not just doing it because the rabbi says it.
Otherwise, you could think, okay, murder's good.
100%. You're not doing it just because everybody else does it or because your father told you to do it. You're doing it because God told you to do it. It's wonderful. That's a wonderful reason.
You try to understand it.
Oh, but 1 second. But another thing that God, if you want to do everything that God wants you to do, right? And the only reason we're doing this is because God says, there's a little bit of a catch to that. What? Another thing God wants you to do is to use your mind and understand as much as you possibly can.
Why is
right?
there a contradiction?
And even no contradiction, and even more to even not just understand, but to take it personally. That you should actually have a love and appreciation of God from this. So in order to do this, we have to appreciate every single detail of the Torah, because everything that's what the word Torah means. Torah means horah, teaching. So everything in the Torah comes as not just to teach us what to do and not to do, what to say, what not to say, and when to say it, when to stand up in shul, when to sit down, and it's telling us not just what to think, what to think. It's telling us also how to feel, what you should love, right? What you should fear, what you should be attached to, what you should believe in.
Want to get excited about it.
Huh?
Want to get excited
Right.
about it.
I just heard a beautiful sikha from the Rebbe that he said, this parsha, Yom HaShmini, it says that the number 7 is the number of completion. And in fact, after 7 days, they built the tabernacle. The whole thing was complete. And it stood up. Yeah, and it stood up and everything was whole. Says what was lacking, all that was lacking was fire. Fire didn't come down. It says not of an aviu, they rushed in and they brought down fire improperly. But the fact is that fire was lacking. Said the Rebbe the same thing. A person can be complete in his observance of the Torah and of the commandments and 100% knows the whole Torah, does all the commandments, wonderful, but he's lacking fire. If he's lacking fire, then that's the Yom HaShemini. It's missing the whole thing. The whole purpose of the Torah of a mitzvahs is supposed to be that a person gets excited about it.
Yeah, we're having this discussion during Shabbos about there's a problem with very, very religious families where the kids just walking away from it.
Right. Right. And a lot of it is not explainable, but the kids have to find their own ways. Because it's a chazakah that you have to be very friendly and loving and understanding and
because we're talking about
accepting.
How to raise our son. So that he should be excited, have fire. And we thought maybe in some houses it's just, this is the law, boom, yeah, boom, boom, everybody's just step in line, this is the orders, this is it. Where's the thinking?
Listen, you can't make general principles. General speaking, the Rebbe has a lot of sichos about it. There has to be love, but it has to be what they call a small docha v'yamin makarevis. There has to be that, clear what's right and what's wrong, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And on the other hand, there has to be love. But they say educating your children is like making a cholent for Shabbos. You know what you can put in. You know what you put in, but you don't know what's going to come out. Right? So children, no matter what you program them, how much you program them. So you see that there are people that become Bali Yeshuvas that were brought up in families that were especially in Israel, you see. There's a lot of them now. A lot of very common. I've seen a lot of people in Israel. Young people that their parents are total atheists. They scoff at religion. They just, for them, Zionism is the only answer. It's the last answer. The this and this. And the children just, they see the whole thing is just empty, and they run away from it. There's others. You're also right that they see that Judaism is empty.
These Bali children parents who are the children of seculars,
right?
And they're worried that their children are not going to continue with it. They're worried because you don't know.
I've seen a lot of things, and I can honestly say that there is no formula.
Yeah.
There's no formula. You have to try to put in as much love and care as possible, but all you have to have is like in the yeshiva, one bad kid, he can wreck up a whole class, or one good kid, he can make friends and make people, staunch and happy and religious, and one bad teacher can wreck everything up, and one good teacher, and one bad experience, one good experience. It's you have to pray a lot. You have to pray a lot. You have to pray a lot. But there's no sure formula. Human beings are not robots. And if you do succeed in making your children into robots, then you haven't got any children. It's like we just said, this is Svengali speaking. This is not, Okay, let's go a little bit further.
Okay, I just want to say one other thing. I got a problem with this wrapper, this candy bar wrapper argument, is that the wrapper is separate from the item itself.
Right.
In the situations that we're talking about, there is no wrapper.
Right.
It's one and the same.
So that's what the Rebbe finally says. You can't, there's opinions to this way and opinions to that way. You can't really separate the signs from the signs of being kosher from the fact that it's kosher. Right? Is it really a cause? A lot of people say yes, that the signs cause it to be kosher. Maybe not. Maybe the signs are just, seems to be more logical, that the signs are just signs. But on the other hand, you're right. God doesn't just arbitrarily stick a sign on something. It must have to, there's somehow or other, they are intrinsically connected one to the other. What is the connection? We'll see. We have to understand, therefore, what is the connection between these two signs of chewing the cud and split hooves to being tahor, especially in the Panemius, as even if we do say that these signs are just they're just no more than that, they're just signs. Since we know that everything in the world comes from hashgacha pratis, this is what you were saying. Everything that comes is with divine intention. In other words, God doesn't do things accidentally. Kol shechein, how much more so in any Torah of mitzvahs. So, uvda zu, this fact itself, that these signs were set to be the signs for an animal, right? Even if you want to say this is just a wrapper, the fact that God chose this wrapping and to put a kosher meat inside of an animal, only animals that have split hooves, it must be that they are very, very important. Shehem kshurin, they must be tied to the idea of tahor, or at least the betoch totza'ah, at least in a way of the outcome. That's how it came out. Lo betor gorem, kadas rishon. Even if you want to say that the split hooves and the chewing the cud don't cause the thing to be kosher, and it's just a result of it being kosher. In other words, because it's kosher, so God put this sign on it. But still, we have to understand, no matter which way you look at it, why did God choose these signs? Right? Why did you guys? So what is so important spiritually about having a split hoof and a chewing cud? Echad nimukim l'ma'achal misurim is kivish called of our ma'achal sha'aram uchal nasa dam b'basar v'soro asra Torah et ha'ma'achal misurim. Because everything that a person eats has a tremendous effect on the person and even imparts some of the qualities of that food onto the person. So therefore, the Torah said to keep away from forbidden foods. So that there should not be implanted in that person the character or the tendencies which are in this forbidden thing. Which are not good. Mikan, move on from here, it's understood. Gam be'inyan zeh shel simoni Torah v'tuma. The fact that it's usher to eat animals that do not chew their cud and that do not have a split hoof, kadei shetchunoteim, in order that these qualities of non-split hoof and not chewing the cud, this should not be implanted in a man. Because people are warned, Jews, don't eat animals that don't have split hooves, because then you won't have a split hoof. A split hoof is good. And don't eat animals that don't chew your cuds, because if you do that, then maybe you won't chew your cud, and chewing your cud is good. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? People don't chew their cud. People don't have a split hoof. What's going on? We'll see. Because, says the Rebbe, a human body doesn't have it, but the conduct of a person has to be mafris parsa umaligira. A human being has to have these two qualities. Every human being has to have a split hoof and has to have a chewing your cud. In spirituality, what is it talking about? We'll see tomorrow, but I'll tell you in a short way. Split hoof means that the heavens and the earth are not separate. Split, open. The earth sees the heavens. And Ma'alagira means that you think things over.
Wait, split hoof is connected to earth and heaven. The split hoof is split.
So it splits because it splits, so therefore the ground sees the heavens. And chewing the cud means that you think things over. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow.